The evening was lively, filled with the usual warmth of a family gathering. The dining room buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the comforting sounds of plates clinking against silverware. The air was rich with the aroma of home-cooked food, the kind that carried nostalgia with every bite. The table was crowded with familiar faces, all sharing stories, teasing one another, and exchanging updates about life. My husband sat beside me, as he always did at these gatherings, calm, quiet, and observant. He was never one to dominate conversations, preferring instead to listen, nodding occasionally, with his signature warm but reserved smile. His presence had always been steady, reassuring, a grounding force in any room. He worked tirelessly in construction, a physically demanding job that many would find exhausting, but he never complained. He took pride in what he did, in the strength it required, in the transformation of raw materials into something tangible, something lasting. His hands, calloused and strong, had built homes, repaired structures, and carried weight both literal and figurative. As the evening progressed, the conversation naturally shifted to careers and work. Stories of promotions, office politics, and business ventures filled the air. There was a casual competitiveness in the way some spoke, a subtle undercurrent of comparison, a quiet measuring of success. It was in the midst of this discussion that my sister, always quick with a joke, turned toward my husband with a smirk. Her tone was light, almost playful, but laced with something deeper, something dismissive. "Just clean my house," she said with a chuckle. "I'll pay you well." The words landed heavily, cutting through the warmth of the evening. For a brief moment, there was silence. A few people laughed, though the laughter was uncertain, hesitant, as if they weren't entirely sure whether it was appropriate. My husband, ever composed, gave a small smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. He was good at masking emotions, at brushing off things that might sting, but I saw the flicker of hurt, the brief shadow that passed through his expression before he smoothed it over. A knot formed in my stomach. There was something about the way she had said it, something that reduced his work to a joke, something that dismissed the effort and skill his job required. It wasn't just a teasing remark, it was a belittling one. It was easy for those who had never done physical labor to look down on it, to treat it as lesser. It was a privilege to never have to think about the hands that built the walls around them, the backs that bore the weight of the world, while others sat comfortably. I set my fork down carefully, resisting the sharp response that wanted to rise to the surface. Taking a breath, I kept my voice calm but firm, my words measured. Actually, his work requires more skill and endurance than most people can handle. He builds things that last, things people rely on every single day without thinking twice, and he does it with pride. My sister's smirk faltered slightly. It was clear she hadn't expected a response like that. The laughter around the table had quieted. A few people glanced away, suddenly occupied with their food. The atmosphere had shifted, subtle but undeniable. My husband let out a small chuckle, breaking the silence. "Hard work is hard work," he said simply, his tone light but carrying an unshakable dignity. "Doesn't matter where it's done." That was the thing about him. He never needed to argue or defend himself loudly. He carried his strength in his silence, in the way he never let the weight of others' judgments define his worth. The conversation moved on, but the energy at the table was different now. My sister avoided my gaze for the rest of the evening, perhaps realizing, if not fully admitting, that her words had crossed a line. Others, too, seemed to have taken note, speaking with a little more care, a little more thoughtfulness. As the night wound down and we got into the car to head home, the hum of the engine filled the quiet space between us. The streetlights cast a soft glow through the windshield, illuminating his face in the dimness. He kept his eyes on the road, his expression unreadable, but I reached for his hand, wrapping my fingers around his rough but familiar palm. "You know I'm proud of you, right?" My voice was softer now, meant just for him. He turned slightly, glancing at me with that same small, steady smile that had always made me feel safe. "I know," he said, his voice carrying a quiet certainty. And in that moment, nothing else mattered.